This type here, Yerushalmi Eruvin, the article Ozvar edition, we're on Daf Mem Gimel Aleph, the second line down. Mishnah Rishus Bahotzi, and the Vilna that is on Daf Mem Amud Aleph. It is the seventh line down on the page. The Mishnah Rishus Bahotzi. So that's going back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah talked about somebody who was Nasan Rishus, and there was Motzi, can be Vatel, the Nasiris Rishus. Says the Gemara, Kini Masisi Mishibita Rishus. Well, see, obviously, the Nasiris Rishus, we're saying, is not just giving it over, but nullifying one's Rishus. It's not a form of a Kinyan, it's a negation. Bein Mishoy Bein Meza Rosa Oiser, that was Rameir in the Mishnah. The Mishnah Rishus Votzi Ben Mishoy Bein Meza Rosa Oiser Love Divrei Meir says Gemara. Well, yes, but not if the other people are masking in the Rishus, because you learned earlier in the the story of Rabbi Gamliel, but it's owned to be masking in the Rishus. So the Kini Masnisa Eino Oser. If the other people are masking in the Rishus, so then the person who's about the Rishus can no longer aser his Rishus. The others, they have already taken hold a bit, and therefore it remains mevuto for the rest of Shabbos. Okay, Tani, we want you had two people who were partners in a chutzner, meis echa mehem, and one of them died. B'nafal abayis Yerushal echa min hashuk, and his house fell as the house of the person who died fell as an inheritance to a person from the marketplace. So he's not participating in the Erev period. Ad shelo chashecha, therefore if it fell before Shabbos, harei zo'eser. It answers because no Erev was established with the heir before Shabbos began. Misha chashecha eino oser. So if it fell after nightfall, so then it doesn't answer, and presumably it's a case where there was an existing eruv, which exists between the person who died and the other person in the chutzner. And we say that as the Korban says, it's made for part of the Shabbos. So why can't the new fellow be Mavatas Rishus? Says where Rabbi Achab B'Shem Melchina said the Shammai, it's going to be Shammai Ein Bal Rishus Mishetechsha. New fellow, the heir cannot be Mavatas Rishus after nightfall. That's why this was not effective here. Beis Hill says Mevalim Rishus Mishetechsha. So therefore, going Beis Hill, the heir can still be Mavatas Rishus, even though he acquired it from before Shabbos. The Misa was before Shabbos, and didn't participate in Erev, but he could still be about the Rishus. So what's then about the Rishus? Rabbi Yezer Boon, Rabbi Yezer said, "We came with Shemeis, ain't bit the Rishus gadol mizeh." So fascinating statement. Once he dies, he's about the Rishus. Now the Korban Eda and the article also learn it as a question. It has no response, but I think it can be a statement as well. And I think that's the way the Pnei Moshe learns it. Let's see the Pnei Moshe. Meisei bundel lohi. In the Kamish is that meis ein b'rishus gadol mizeh. Sheyistag b'rishus mimela. His rishus is removed. And he says, he takes a step further. Pnei Moshe says, even going to Beis Shammai, even died after Chashecha, there's no issue. The Zeshemes Irevu, because the guy who died, he was credited with the Ben Hashmoshos. He'll shoot in a session of Lerusha, Shahuta Mikta Shabbos. So therefore, the person who gets it, even when Shabbos began, even going to Beis Shammai doesn't answer it. But you don't have to learn as going to Beis Shammai, because like the Pnei Moshe goes, it's very far-reaching. But simply going to Beis Hill. Going to Beis Hill, the fact that the person died on Erev Shabbos and nobody else took hold of the house. Yes, the heir inherited in Cheshem Mishpat, but he's not living there. So therefore, since he's not living there, so therefore this Rishus is considered to be Batal Me'elav until the new heir for Hilchot Tzos of Orach Chaim. So Hilchot Eruvin, until somebody else takes up residence there, so the heir would take residence. So Kamish Shemeis Eincha Bit Rishus Gadol Mizeh, even if he died Miboid Yom, right? Nevertheless, the fact that he died, nobody's living there, that Rishus can no longer answer. Okay, what about the converse case, which is evidently the continuation of Brisa? Somebody from the market who does not live here. He had a house in his chutzner, so therefore he wouldn't answer umeis, but he dies. Now the house falls usually to somebody who does live in the chutzner. So, if this happens before nightfall, the answer is because he now has a house in there's a new resident in the community. After nightfall, he doesn't answer. So, because already Shabbos was mutter at the beginning of Shabbos. So what about Betushus? Only the Beis Shammai. It's also going to be Beis Shammai. The Shammai involved Betushus Mishetechshach. The resident can't be involved in Betushus after nightfall. So therefore, it fell before nightfall to the new owner who is a resident here. He answers. No, he fell before nightfall to the new owner. He can vow to a shus after nightfall. Okay, now the Gemara asks a different question. Mao, and here we're going to go to Karmi E's Girsa, which the article fixes it inside. He does. He fixes it inside itself. Mao liskor rishus mishetachshach. Okay, we're talking about bitul rishus after nightfall. Of course, so you can do it. What about skiros rishus from a non-Jew after Shabbos begins? So you can do it or not. Here, Rabbi Yasser, they came to Chamsun Goder. Now, there's the Yerushalmi Eruvin brings down this is the same story as the Bavli Daf Samachay. They came to an inn, and the non-Jew, and the non-Jew owns the inn, came on Shabbos to stay in the inn, and they started carrying before the non-Jew arrived because they held that a non-Jew only asks if he's present. And when they came, they raised the question: can they do skirus now on Shabbos? Now that the goy has showed up. Okay, so the Shalom Rabbi Chama. So that was the story. It's not brought down explicitly. Shalom Rabbi Chama Rabbi Yosef B'Shor. They asked Rabbi Chama Rabbi Yosef, permitted. Sham Rabbi Yochanan Mar Yofasisem. So Rabbi Yochanan heard this story and said, "You did good. The skirus was effective." Sham Shimon Log Shemar Lo Asisim Yofe. You didn't do good. So says Gemara Mapliyin is the machlokas here between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Says Gemara Rabbi Yizir Amar Lo Pliyin. No, they don't argue. Mana Yofasisem Shesachartem. He says that you did well that you carried, that you rented the area on Shabbos. Ma'amer lo asisim yafeh, she'll tell them. The one who says that you didn't do good, it was that you carried before you were Tzorech Rishus. In other words, you should not have carried, even though the guy wasn't present. You should not have relied on the fact guy not being present. You should have done Tzorech Rishus before you carried at all, even when the guy is not present on the premises. Rabbi Barmar plea here, but it says no. They do argue. Reish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan. Mana Yofas Isem Shesachartem Shiltel Tatem. He holds he did good both the skiers and the tiltu. Mana Mar Lov Losis Yofas Lo Shesachartem Lo Shiltel Tatem. Neither tiltu nor the skiers was good, and you can't be socher from the Shabbos. You have to be socher from before Shabbos begins. Okay, next sugya. It really has parallel with first parak, and they want to change it a little bit in Farshim here from the way it appeared first parak, even though it's almost identical because of the continuity of the Gemara subsequently. But it's easiest to learn it as it appears in first parak and then deal with the continuity afterwards. And the Gemara here by us, the only difference is here it says Raiba boy afi mechitzas came. Raiba as in terms of mechitzas, is it the same as where mechitzas change on Shabbos? So now we're going to switch to parak Av Halacha Yud, where the same sugya appears in light. Korban there, he doesn't learn the same way here, but let's learn Korban there, with the same way Chaim learned there, more or less. Actually, is the difference. We'll learn Korban straight. Hayushtaim be'irvu eruv echad. Slight change of gears, and it's obvious. There are two people who made one eruv. V'va'akum v'hosif, and a non-Jew came and added. Kvanichas to Shabbos Bisser. So then Shabbos came in Bisser. Hayashlosha v'irvu. It says Shnei Eruvin there. Shnei Eruvin. Uva'akum piches. There were three, and they made two Eruvin, and a non-Jew came and took away. Shabbos beheter. Shabbos began beheter. Now, what are we talking about? So, the Korban explains there. Echidami. Hayushnaim v'irvu in the Vilna adds on your base on base. Hayush the Korban. Hayushnaim v'irvu base asayim. It's a shayara. It's a caravan, and there are two people, and they made a base asayim. Kadina laws is there; they're allowed to make. Two people can make a base asayim. Vakum Shabbos l'hosif ve'vil disacher. A non-Jew came on Shabbos and brought them another Jew. V'hosif gam mechitza also added on to the perimeter. So anyone thought they had a base asayim. The only reason they had their base asayim. The Shabbos Goremus, because Shabbos makes the determination. Shabbos, Shabbos, which has again, low to them ki base asayim. The only were permitted to have a asayim. Hayu Shlosha, what are there? Three of them. And they made six, which they're allowed to do if they have three people. And the came and took one of them away. So Hosif in the first case means he added on a person and in the perimeter. Second case means he took away a person, but the perimeter remained the same. Mutarim. We're still mutar to carry all the six. Shabbos heter, because Shabbos began beheter. So that's the same thing here. Again, I'm going to read it by Argamar. Eruv echad, she one eruv. Uvakum b'osim, the non-Jew came, he added on another person, and to the perimeter. Shabbos be'isser, they only had the base of sign. They can't carry more than that. If there are three people, and they were Ma'arev Shnei Eruvin, and they were Ma'arev the two Eruvin, meaning here, like the Korban Eder said before, and I should have pointed this out, the Ma'arev more. Not Shnei doesn't mean so. It doesn't mean two. It means an additional amount. In other words, they went beyond their the allocation which two people had of two saw, and they made three saw, and the Reb Chaim there it changes. It doesn't change here for some reason, but it changes there to three. Shlosh Eruvin, meaning again not three separate Eruvin, but they added on an area which they could have a base sign, a base sign for each one. So Uva Akum and the non-Jew came with Piches and took away one of the people. Shabbos beheter. So Shabbos already began was permissible and remains permissible. Now, Rabbi Ba Minado, I'm not sure why it causes so much difficulty, but Rabbi Ba Minado, Rabbi Ba learned this principle of whatever happens to him, Shabbos makes a determination of Shabbos. Kol Shabbos shirchasa beheter mutter, because you have a principle. It says any Shabbos just came in beheter is mutter. Beiser also came beheter is also chutz minavat rishus. Except for being about rishus, there's the only scenario which changes on Shabbos is going to do bitul rishus. Uman damar, there is an opinion which we brought that before. Chutzin mevater masker that that you could do the schiras rishus on Shabbos as well if you didn't do beginning of Shabbos. Although we said before that was a machlokas. That's what I both said before. Plige, right? There's machlokas Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. Okay, the next more says, "Mal liskor rishus min apundiki." Can you reserve rishus from the innkeeper? So most of the Farshim know the Korban Eder, which is like the Rashba, and which is actually very important Rashba halacha because that's a very basic fundamental concept schiras rishus. So we'll read the Korban Eder, but the Nir has an interesting alternative shot, which we'll mention afterwards. First says the Korban Eder, "Pundaki yesh v'chadar b'suchim l'chotzer." Has rooms open to the chotzer, and the guests at the inn go through them through the chotzer. V'osim zel zeh b'Shabbos, therefore they ask each other b'Shabbos. V'hava dair b'u chotzer shnei Yisraelim v'chad akum, and they were living in that chotzer over that Shabbos. Two Yisraelim and one non-Jew. Shesochas di rosim v'chaveru akum, who himself was the tenant. Who he was a guest who rented the room from the landlord, the innkeeper. That Shabbos, the tenant, the guest was not there. Only the landlord, the innkeeper. They're afraid that the guest, the tenant, would come on Shabbos. The question is, are they allowed to be socher from the maskir? Can they rent out rishus from the landlord, innkeeper? Because he, since it's only a guest in the inn, not a permanent rental, so he can remove the socher, even though he hasn't removed him, olo or not. Okay, so that the Mir says so about a pundiki who only rents rooms to Jews when there are no non-Jews. If a goy comes in the middle of Shabbos, then he's going to remove the Jew. So the question is, until that point, the schirus from work in this case where it's not going to last for, it might not last for Shabbos, because the non-Jew comes in Shabbos, the landlords, the innkeeper is going to remove the Jew and give the room to a non. So the shot works out slightly better according to the Nir. You can learn according to Karmei and Rash, but you can learn like the Nir just because it's more glot. So the Gemara says that Rabbi Chini and Rabbi Yosef Salkin Chamsa Gader. They were Chini and Yosef went to Chamsa Gader. Similar to the case here in Omerov. There was a popular travel spot. There it was Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Ima went to Chamsa Gader. And they said, we have the Shiloh. I mean, let's wait till Ziknei Dorim come to here and we'll ask them the question. As Rabbi Nassim Droma, so Rabbi Nassim Droma came, they asked him, he permitted renting from the innkeeper, even though he could remove them anytime during Shabbos. What kind of schirus is this? Since he can remove us anytime and give our room to a non-Jew, it's meaningless. What kind of schirus is it? So the Shimon Bar Barba, Rabbi Yochanan, so Shimon Bar Barba said, the Rabbi Yochanan responded, the guy responded with a question in English, said, so in this case, you're concerned that a transaction can be valid because we don't have jurisdiction, because they can remove us anytime. So even our own houses, a goy can remove us from our house, the right of the government to eminent domain. They can move us from our houses or to quarter soldiers. They can quarter soldiers, so therefore we shouldn't be allowed to transact any transaction, even with our own houses, right? So the should be able to make should make able to make Eruvin. Houses are not our own houses; so we can move any time. Rabbi Simon says, no, it's not the same thing. Our house not us in that they can quarter soldiers by us, but they can't remove us from our houses. And even eminent domain, they can't remove you just like that. They have to. They don't remove people from their houses. From they put soldiers in, or they offer you compensation, perhaps. But it's laduri manu. Let's say motzino, but to remove us altogether. So that they won't, that they don't do. But in this inn, they can remove us altogether. And again, if the innkeeper is willing to move the Jews in the middle of Shabbos, anytime it comes, so then the schirus should not be a valid schirus, right? So that's why that's was Reish Lakish's question. Obviously, Rabbi Nassim Deroma did not feel that was a valid question, and probably because the schirus we know is not necessarily have to be a strong schirus, but Rabbi Shimon was justifying Rabbi Shimon Laki's question on the procedure, even though Nassim Deroma obviously nevertheless argued and said no, it doesn't matter because the schirus which we need is not the same type of schirus which we need for Choshen Mishpah purposes. Halacha. We're talking about shitim v'avos, which doesn't require specifically bread. So Abai said a shutfus with his neighbors, Zebiyain, this one with wine and that one with wine. Enzrim Arev, they don't have to make Eruv, and here Eruv means the Shita Mevos. L'Zebiyain was Zebishemen, but if they had for one with wine and with one with oil, that doesn't work. And I was going to explain this. Tzrichim Arev, they have to make a Shituf. For Shimon Omer, Echad Zeb Echad and Tzrichim Arev, no matter what, they don't have to make that Shituf. They can rely on their other part of the partnership, which is pre-existing. Okay, so the Pnei Moshe explains in greater detail, but we will leave for the Gemara. Right, but B'Shem Rabbi Yehuda said, "B'derech ha'aretz shanu." So Carmen explains, "B'derech davish derech ha'om la'arev taimas nisin." We can farish. We're talking about in things people normally mix. And that's why there's a difference. L'zebiyain, if he has a partnership to this guy with wine, this guy with wine, since they're both wine, so since they wouldn't be makid if they got mixed together, evidently the same quality of wine. I don't know if the different qualities of wine perhaps would be different nowadays when people are much more discerning, but perhaps at that time, since it's all wine, so since they're not makid, since they could all mix them all together, it's all wine. So therefore, that constitutes the valid partnership, and you don't need further shituf. The fact that I'm partnered with him, and I'm partnered with him, we don't have to actually make partners with each other. But shemen, if I'm partnered with him in oil, if I'm partnered with him in wine, since it's normally you don't mix wine and oil together, you need to have an additional shituf to bring us all a bit together. Right, Bob Barkano, B'Shem Rav said, "Whoa, it's only b'sulimikli echad humas nisa. If it's it has to all be in one vessel." As says the Korban I'm assuming shnei kelim. If it's a two kelim, if you yain tzichem arif. I've got the eruv. I feel shnei kelim kosher, even if you did make a shituf, even two kelim is kosher. Hanim dafkin shtatu l'shem eruv. That's the only thing I'm shtatu with the shem eruv, and then they have to put in two kelim. Avocha here originally two kelim, and their partners are two separate people. It doesn't work. Avocha lo l'shem eruv nishtatu, and therefore it's not effective. It has to dafka be in one keli. So I guess the partnership was in shares. I guess one person had a keli with a lot of wine, in which this person had certain shares of wine, that person had certain shares of wine, and they were both partners with him in his large vat, but they weren't partners with each other. But it was all one big vat of wine. So why is there Shimon hold if one with wine, one with oil, you don't have to make additional shituf? There's a certain type of beverage that you drink for if you're feeling a problem with your throat, anigron, where you put oil and wine together. So migo, you put oil and wine together. When you make that beverage, they can consider to be one entity. Okay, is that the end of the Omud? No, it is not. Tani He said, no, we don't rely on they don't rely on this. They don't rely on what it says in the Mishnah. Two different pshatim here in the Pnei Moshe learns a kipshuto that even this wine and this wine they have to mix them together, and you don't rely on the shutfus which they have. So they have to make a joint shituf. According to the Korban means that no, you need to have besides the shituf, you have to have an eruv. Right? There's not enough to have a shituf; you have to have an eruv as well. Rabbi Yaakov b'Shem Rav said, "Look, Rabbi Elazar ben Tadai." Yaakov Baruch b'Shem Azir said, "Aseh Elazar ben Tadai ki Rabbi Meir." And this is this seems much rather Korban Eda, that and I think even the Pnei Moshe at this point changes. Hide my Meir, my mother, I Meir do Amar day eruv day shituf. That you need eruv and shituf. But I think the Pnei Moshe, when his original pshat was probably going with the next line. Amar Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Bun, Rabbi Meir, it's going to be said, Amar Ein Sheim Arvin Lo Adam Elam Mi Daito. In other words, that you have to be. A person has to be cognizant of the shituf, and therefore it's not enough that this guy's a partnership with both. They both have to be consciously aware of their participation in shituf. So it's interesting. Kind of the corporate area picked up on the first time mayor, and decided you need Eruvin shituf, and that's what it's saying. Tzarech la'arev means that the way he said Asur means that you need both Eruvin shituf. And Moshe kind of picked up on the second same right mayor, the Kedaito, meaning that this shituf itself has to be with everybody's cognizance, and therefore it's not good enough that I have partnership with this guy, partnership with that guy. We'll have to be aware that we're joined together in order to make the shituf from Vos. So need both shatim, both the carbonate and the Moshe. And that's it for today.